His opponent fighting out of the red corner.
The drama surrounding Ryan Garcia and Mario Barrios did not begin inside a boxing ring. It began in the chaos of an airport terminal, under fluorescent lights, with cameras rolling and tensions boiling over in a way that felt less like a promotional moment and more like a genuine eruption of two men who had genuinely grown to despise each other. Long before a single punch was thrown in competition, this fight had already taken on a life of its own. A life fueled by personal insults, explosive confrontations, whispered injury rumors, and the kind of raw, unfiltered animosity that boxing promoters dream about but rarely get to witness in its most authentic form. This was not manufactured controversy. This was real. And that reality is precisely what made everything that followed so utterly gripping to watch. To understand how Fight Night arrived with such staggering emotional weight, you have to trace the story back to its roots. Mario Barrios walked into this contest as the reigning and defending WBA Super Lightweight Champion of the world, a fighter who had earned his stripes in the most demanding way possible. Fighting out of San Antonio, Texas, he carried an unblemished professional record of 26 wins with 0 losses, 17 of those victories coming by way of knockout, a statistic that told a very clear story about what kind of danger he represented once he got his rhythm and his opponents started to feel the accumulation of his pressure. He was not a flashy fighter by nature. He was a machine, methodical, powerful, tactically sound, and utterly relentless in the way he imposed himself on the men who stood across from him. Making the second defense of his title, Barrios arrived at Fight Week with purpose. He had something to prove, not just to the boxing world, but perhaps more importantly, to Ryan Garcia himself. Garcia, on the other hand, carried an entirely different kind of energy into the buildup. Fighting out of Victorville, California, the young superstar had built a reputation that extended far beyond the boundaries of traditional boxing. With 24 victories on his professional record, and 20 of those coming by knockout, Garcia was undeniably talented. His speed was elite, his left hook was one of the most feared weapons in the sport, and his ability to time opponents and land with devastating precision made him a genuine threat to anyone in the division. But questions lingered. His last performance had not silenced his critics the way his supporters had hoped. Tim Bradley had made no secret of his assessment, stating bluntly that Garcia would need a significant upgrade in his performance if he hoped to survive a championship war against a man of Barrios' caliber and experience. Those words hung over the entire build-up like a storm cloud, and Garcia, never a man to ignore a challenge to his pride, absorbed every syllable of doubt and let it fuel something dangerous inside him. What turned this from a compelling title fight into a full-blown spectacle was the airport incident that sent shockwaves through the boxing world and dominated headlines in the days leading up to Fight Night. Details flew across social media in real time. Cameras captured the moment Barrios appeared to snap, charging toward Garcia in a confrontation that felt spontaneous and viscerally real in a way that even the most skillfully choreographed press conference stare-downs rarely achieve. The entire scene unfolded with a jaw-dropping intensity that stopped people mid-scroll and forced them to pay attention. This was not two fighters trading rehearsed insults at a podium. This was an altercation that carried genuine risk, genuine anger, and genuine consequence. The boxing world, already invested in the matchup, erupted. Fans who had been casually following the fight's promotion suddenly found themselves obsessively engaged, refreshing feeds, watching replays, and debating what it all meant for the fight itself. The response from figures within the sport was immediate and forceful. Promoter Frank Warren wasted no time delivering a sharp and clear-eyed rebuke of the entire situation, reminding everyone involved, and everyone watching, that fighters do not get paid to fight before the fight. His message cut through the noise with the authority of a man who had spent decades navigating the complex and often volatile world of professional boxing. The only fighting that mattered, he insisted, was the kind that happened inside the ropes, under the lights, when the bell sounded and everything else fell away. Terence Crawford echoed that sentiment with characteristic bluntness, dismissing Barrios' behavior as clown antics and making clear that elite fighters don't need chaos outside the ring to sell their fights. Respect for the sport, Crawford argued, demanded that the real business be conducted where it was supposed to be conducted. But not everyone was purely critical. Adam Smith, with the measured perspective of someone who has witnessed boxing's most dramatic chapters unfold over many years, offered a more nuanced reading of the situation. While violence outside the ring was never acceptable, Smith acknowledged that these explosive moments of pre-fight tension are part of the very fabric of what makes boxing so uniquely compelling to its global audience. The drama surrounding the airport confrontation had done something measurable. It had made an already significant fight dramatically bigger. The casual fan, who might have given the event only passing interest, was now fully invested. Every word that either fighter spoke in interviews, every appearance at a press event, every social media post became charged with new meaning and new stakes. Ryan Garcia processed all of it in his own way, and the version of Garcia that emerged from that processing was one who seemed to be operating at a genuinely elevated emotional frequency. His pre-fight interviews crackled with an intensity that felt barely contained, like a fighter who had crossed some internal threshold and arrived at a place of absolute, total conviction. He spoke about his training with the fervent certainty of a man who had genuinely surprised himself in the gym, who had discovered something in his preparation that he had not expected to find. He told anyone who would listen that they did not know what he was capable of, that he was on fire, that he was strong, and that he was ready to make a statement of the kind that would cut through every piece of criticism that had been leveled at him. There was no performative quality to it. This was Garcia stripped down to something raw and real, a fighter who had taken every doubt, every dismissal, every questioning of his ability, and converted it into something that burned hot and clear inside him. For Barrios, the approach was different, but no less determined. He entered Fight Week as the champion, as the man with the belt, with the undefeated record, and with the championship experience that Garcia had not yet accumulated. He understood something about pressure that only comes from having been in those moments before, from having felt the weight of a title fight bear down and having responded with the kind of composure that separates good fighters from great ones. His physical advantages were significant and widely discussed by analysts in the buildup. He was bigger at the weight. He was stronger. His jab was a weapon he used with intelligence and frequency. His ability to close distance, walk fighters down, and impose his will over the course of a championship fight had been demonstrated on multiple occasions against quality opposition. If Garcia wanted to win, he would need to be sharper, faster, and smarter than he had ever been before. Johnny Nelson's voice of warning added another layer of complexity to an already layered narrative. His concern was genuine and grounded in the understanding that fighters who allow their emotions to become fully engaged before fight night carry those emotions into the ring, sometimes to their benefit and sometimes to their profound detriment. The mental preparation required for a world championship fight is an intricate and delicate thing. Any disruption, any emotional destabilization, can have cascading effects on focus, game plan execution, and the ability to make split-second adjustments when things do not go according to plan. The airport incident had disrupted that preparation for everyone involved, and Nelson's concern was not without historical precedent. Fighters who arrive at the fight consumed by emotion often discover, somewhere in the middle rounds, that anger is not a sustainable energy source and that composure is worth more than fury when the championship rounds arrive. As if the drama of the airport confrontation and the pre-fight war of words were not enough, whispers of an injury began to circulate through Fight Week, adding yet another layer of uncertainty to what was already an almost impossibly tense situation. Reports, vague and unverified, suggested that one of the fighters may have been dealing with an ankle issue in the lead-up. The rumors did not come with specifics attached, and those who mentioned them did so with appropriate uncertainty, acknowledging that the details were unclear and that speculation without confirmation could do real damage. But that is how the fight business works. Information travels fast, partial truths take on the shape of full ones, and the psychological landscape of Fight Week becomes even more difficult to navigate when rumors of physical vulnerability start to attach themselves to fighters who need to project total confidence. Eddie Hearn called the situation extremely tough for everyone involved, a diplomatic understatement that nonetheless conveyed the full weight of how complicated and stressful the build-up had become. When fight night finally arrived, the electricity in the arena was something that went beyond ordinary sporting anticipation. This was a crowd that had been primed by days of explosive drama to witness something they would not forget. The introductions carried the weight of everything that had come before them. Mario Barrios, undefeated, the defending WBA Super Lightweight Champion, stepping through the ropes in his pink trunks with blue and gold trim, representing San Antonio with the quiet authority of a man who had been here before and knew exactly what he was doing. And Ryan Garcia, 24-1 with 1 no contest, fighting out of Victorville, wearing blue, carrying the burden and the fire of everything that had been said about him and everything he had promised to prove. From the opening exchanges, the fight delivered on the promise that the buildup had made. Garcia came out sharp, fast, and precise. His timing was evident from the earliest moments, and when he uncorked his signature left hook and snapped Barrios' head back, the crowd erupted with a kind of visceral, immediate reaction that only the truly dangerous punch elicits. There was something different about Garcia on this night, something that the weeks of fire and fury and emotional engagement had forged into a sharper, more focused version of the fighter that his critics had questioned. He moved with confidence. He chose his moments with intelligence. He was not simply throwing punches and hoping. He was thinking, calculating, and executing with the kind of precision that Tim Bradley had challenged him to find. But Barrios did not fold. Champions rarely do. As the rounds progressed, the champion began to assert the qualities that had carried him to the belt in the first place. His jab, consistent and well-directed, started to find a home. His body attack, patient and cumulative, began to make itself felt. He pushed Garcia toward the back foot, forcing him into defensive postures that ate into his ability to generate the offensive rhythm he craved. The fight settled into something deeply competitive, a genuine war between two fighters whose contrasting styles created an almost perfect dramatic tension. Speed against strength. Flash against fundamentals. Garcia's explosive precision against Barrios' relentless, suffocating pressure. Every round told its own story within the larger narrative, and the question of who would crack first under the weight of the other's best efforts hung over every exchange. The psychological dimension of the fight was impossible to separate from the physical one. This was always going to be true, given everything that had unfolded in the days leading up to it. Eddie Hearn had said it clearly before the fight. Once personal insults and genuine emotional wounds enter the equation, a fighter's reactions become harder to predict and harder to control. The airport confrontation had made this deeply personal for both men. Barrios had crossed a line, and Garcia had absorbed that transgression and vowed to make it mean something inside the ring. Whether that extra layer of motivation elevated Garcia's performance or whether it introduced a volatility that could have worked against him was a question that only the fight itself could answer. What the fight answered, in the most final and emphatic way possible, was the question of whether Ryan Garcia belonged at the elite level of the sport. When the knockout came, brutal, sudden, and conclusive in the way that only the cleanest punches can be, it silenced every critic who had ever questioned